Welcome to Team G503. I'm Scott Schiller, your host, and we're restoring a 1943 Willys MB. In tonight's video episode, I'll be draining and removing the radiator. Going to be removing the radiator on the 1943 Willys MB. Just going to show you some parts here in the beginning before we start disassembly. There's the radiator support rod. Goes back to the firewall. There's the radiator cap. And there's the overflow tube. We're missing pieces of the shroud here on this radiator. It doesn't leak, it's in good shape. Still works, cools. Down here, we've got a lower hose that connects to the water pump on the block. And down here on the hose, the metal piece here that comes out of the radiator, we've got the petcock to drain the fluid and radiator fluid out of there. And then we've got our top hose that goes to the thermostat housing on the top of the head. Before I drain this, it's cool, it hasn't been running, it's all cooled down, but I like to remove the cap just so we got airflow, nothing gets plugged up before we drain it. And then we're going to come down, we've got a pan on the floor, going to collect the radiator fluid. And I'll just turn the drain cock and it'll start coming out. And we'll just let that drain into the pan so we can properly dispose of it later. The radiator is almost drained of the coolant, so now what I'm going to do, while this is still dripping out of there, is go ahead and remove this top radiator hose that goes to the thermostat housing. And these are not the correct clamps on here. They've got little thumb screws. So we'll go ahead and take those off and then pull the hose off. Just a small little crescent wrench there. Again, these are not the correct clamps. And I don't think that Napa hose was on there in 1943 either. Let's go ahead and break the hose free. And you don't want to come off there that easily. So I'll probably just go ahead and cut that. I was able to work this with my hands a little bit and get it loose instead of cutting it, and I'd like to save it anyway. You might want to keep that for an emergency repair kit or the like, so that'll come off there now and twist off. You see your top port here of your radiator. Looks like we've got enough of the coolant drained out. It's just dripping now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the lower hose as well. And there's a clamp to the water pump, and there's a clamp to the inlet on the radiator. Just go ahead and remove those. So we're underneath the Jeep now, and you'll see the two studs that are on the bottom of the radiator and the nuts that hold them. And note the ground straps that are on both of those. And they go to the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and put some PB Blaster on those two. They look like they need it, and we'll remove those bolts, nuts, and remove the radiator. Now that I've got the two nuts removed from the bottom of the radiator, I'm just going to simply grab it and lift it straight up and remove it. And then I'm going to bring you around the side here of the frame. I want to show you some pieces that are important to the mounting of this radiator. On the cross member of the frame, you'll see these two areas where your radiator is mounted to. They're welded to the cross member. And here you'll see this piece of rubber. This is homemade. This is not the correct one. But there's radiator mounting pads that go on both sides here. And those are available at Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts, and I'll show you the part and the part number. With the radiator removed, we can really get a good look at this GPW engine here. And you'll notice there, I just noticed this, that oil return line right here is not even connected to anything from the canister. So that's kind of interesting. And then down here, we'll look at our radiator fan, and it kind of slides on the belt. And that's because this belt is all heat glazed and cracked, and it's way too loose. So, and if you look really far down there on the pulley guard, you'll see that it's full of oil and grime. That's because that timing cover is leaking something fierce. So no matter, we're going to pull this engine. This GPW engine will have a new life at some point. Just kind of some interesting things to look at. Just a little G503 tech tip before we finish up this video. My next move in the coolant removal is going to be to drain it from the block. And there's a petcock right there on the side of the block. Hope you can see it. It's behind the generator right there. And I'll get to that next time and drain the rest of this out. But what I like to do before I finish up for the day, I know what my next project is going to be, is I'll go ahead and take some penetrating catalyst and just give the bolts I know and the next thing a quick shot so that it'll be soaking while I'm gone from the shop. We'll give those a quick shot, and next time we come back, they should be all ready to come off. And you probably get a little bit impatient like me when you're working on these things, and you don't want to squirt this stuff on there and wait too awful long. So that's just a quick little tip. I'll be removing the generator next, and we can drain the rest of the coolant out of the block. Thank you for watching. I will be removing the generator and some other parts of the carburetor and maybe the air intake next time around in the engine. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel Team G503, and happy Jeeping.